Hello everyone, in today's video I will be doing an election prediction between Donald Trump and Elizabeth Warren. Warren has seen her support among Democrats steadily rise, and as of today it is at 13.8%, and that's just 0.2% behind Bernie Sanders, who was at 14%. This is according to the Real Clear Politics average of all the opinion polls. But let's get right into this video, I think. As usual, I will be using the poll closing format to mirror what an actual election would look like. 7 PM, and we go to Vermont, where Warren would easily win by a safe margin. It's right next to a home state of Massachusetts. I see no reason why Vermont would be a close state. Trump would pick up Indiana, Kentucky, and South Carolina by safe margins, I think. Again, I don't see any reasons why these states would become close. Virginia and Georgia would be swing states in this election. 7:30 PM, and West Virginia goes to Donald Trump. Ohio and North Carolina are swing states. 8 PM, and we have a number of states to fill in. We have Massachusetts to fill in which I don't think Trump would win a single county in, because it's Elizabeth Warren's home state. She would win all these states here in the Northeast, including the District of Columbia. She would pick up Illinois, and she would pick up Maine's 1st congressional district by a safe margin. I think she would do quite well in Maine. And Donald Trump would also pick up some states. He would pick up Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Missouri. Florida would be a swing state. Pennsylvania would be a swing state. And that's it, I think, for 8 PM. I do apologise if I missed your state out, but I think that's all of them. New Hampshire would be a swing state. That's why I didn't fill it in. 8:30 PM, and Arkansas goes to Trump. 9 PM, and we have a lot of states to fill in again. New York goes to Elizabeth Warren by a safe margin. I don't see any reason why Trump would make that competitive. We would have Trump winning down here in all these states, except in Nebraska's 2nd district, which we will come back to. Texas would be safe in this election, I think, because Trump won the state by 9% in 2016 against Clinton, but I think he'll be able to increase his margin above 10% against Warren, because she's a progressive, and progressives don't do that well in Texas. In the Democratic primary in 2016, Clinton won 65.2% of the vote to Sanders' 33.2%, so it's almost a 2-1 margin. Wyoming would be safe for Trump, Colorado would be a swing state, New Mexico is a swing state, and Arizona is a swing state. 10 PM, and Utah and Montana go for Trump by safe margins. Iowa and Nevada, I think it is. Yep, Nevada, swing state. 11 PM rolls around. Idaho goes to Trump, and then we have the West Coast filling in for Warren, putting her ahead. And 1 AM, Alaska goes to Trump. 183 electoral votes for Warren to 163 for Trump. 192 are too close to call. Let's get right into this. I think in Virginia, I think Trump would be able to pick that state off. Now, before you hit the dislike button, hear me out on this. I know it's Virginia, and I'm putting it in Trump's column. Hear me out before you hit the dislike button. Trump only has a negative 4% approval rating in Virginia as of June 2019, according to the Morning Consult. Hillary Clinton won the state in 2016 by, it was more than 5%, but less than 6%. about 5.5%, I think. But this was because she had a number of factors in her favour. Tim Kaine was the VP nominee, and she was a moderate Democrat. Clinton was a moderate Democrat, and they are very liked in Virginia. And this is supported by the way Virginia voted in the Democratic primary. Hillary Clinton got 64.3% of the vote in the Democratic primary, and Bernie Sanders got just 35.2%. So, again, this is almost a 2-1 margin in favour of the moderate Democrats. So, if a progressive like Warren ran, then I think some of the moderate Democrats would be turned off by that. And then you'd have the Democrats who would be turned off by the VP nominee not being from the state. And I think all these factors combined would, I think, lead to Trump pulling the state off. It wouldn't be a great victory, but it would lean in his column, I think. I think Ohio would actually be safe for Trump. And I think he will be able to edge it out above 10%, because Clinton won in the Democratic primary by 13% above Sanders. So I think, again, some of the moderate Democrats would... I don't think they'd vote for Trump. They might vote third party, but either way, I think they'll either vote third party or they just won't vote at all. And I think that's why Ohio will tip into the safe column. I don't think that Trump would necessarily gain more voters in Ohio. I just think, the lack of Democratic turnout will mean that it will look like his base has a bigger influence than in 2016. In the state of North Carolina, I think Trump would actually win that by a likely margin. North Carolina would be likely in favour of Trump. And the reason for that is he won the state by nearly 4% in 2016 anyway, against a moderate Democrat who won the primary in that state by 14%. So I think Trump could slightly expand his base to reach that 5% mark and use the lack of turnout amongst the moderate Democrats to put North Carolina in a likely category. However, in the Northeast, I think Warren would do very well. I think she would take away voters from Trump in Maine because of the close proximity. And I actually think that Maine at large would go likely in favour of Warren. And in the 2nd congressional district, I think she'd be able to take votes enough to put it into the lean column, so below 5%. I think she'd win New Hampshire likely. So, filled in Vermont by mistake. There we go, New Hampshire by a likely margin. And I think it's because of her northeastern appeal and the fact that New Hampshire is right next to Massachusetts. And also because Trump called New Hampshire a drug-infested den. I think those comments will come back to haunt him. We may have forgotten about them now, but they will be dug up when the election comes around. In the state of Pennsylvania, I think Trump would take the state by a lean margin. And I just don't see Warren's appeal in the Northeast reaching out to Pennsylvania. I think the lack of turnout among moderates and the increased turnout amongst progressives will basically just cancel each other out. Maybe even see Trump expand a little bit to get above the 1% threshold. And it's not just in Pennsylvania, but also in Michigan and Wisconsin as well, that I think Trump would do this. And in Florida, I see Trump winning as well. Progressives don't do well in Florida, as we saw in the Democratic primary, where Bernie Sanders got just 33.3% of the vote to Clinton's 64.3%. So, again, it's these huge 2-1 margins. But again, Florida is, a swing state, and it's always close, so it wouldn't be, a huge win for Trump. I think, it would lean in his column, definitely. Maybe 2-3% perhaps. I don't think it would be likely. Or not as of now. In the state of Minnesota, I think Warren would take Minnesota by a lean margin, and the reason for that is Minnesota is a state that went to Bernie Sanders by 61.6%, compared to Clinton's 38.4% in the Democratic primary. Overwhelming support for Bernie Sanders, overwhelming support for a progressive candidate. So I think Warren would do quite well in Minnesota, which is why, again, I think it would retain in the lean column, maybe even expound on the margin Hillary Clinton got, perhaps getting it up to 3 or 4% above. I'm not sure it would go into the likely column, but definitely in the lean column. And I don't see Trump getting it down to the tilt Democratic column, and I don't see him winning Minnesota against Warren as of right now. Colorado and New Mexico, I think they would both be likely states for Elizabeth Warren. And Colorado went for Sanders by 59% in the Democratic primary, and Trump lost Colorado by nearly 5% in 2016 anyway. So I think this excitement that the progressive voters in Colorado would have because of a progressive running would easily tip Colorado into the more than 5% category, so into the likely column. And New Mexico is a likely state because of the Latino population there. I think that this state is kind of beyond Trump reach now, and that I think because of trends it'll become a safe Democratic state soon anyway. Yeah, but I think it's just really difficult for Trump to take that state. I forgot to fill in Georgia before. I think Georgia would go by a likely margin to Trump, and the reason for that is because again, progressives didn't do well in the South in 2016, and I think that would excite Republicans to come out and vote more in that state because of a progressive on the Democratic side. And I also think the moderate Democrats would, again, they'd either stay at home or they'd vote third party or protest votes. I don't know, but either way, Georgia will be likely. And Trump won Georgia by a likely margin in 2016. It was about 5%. I just don't see him gaining enough voters to put it in the safe column. I think Georgia would remain in the likely column. Apologies for not filling out Georgia before. I just didn't notice. Sorry about that. In the state of Arizona, I think Arizona could be interesting. I see it going to Trump by a likely margin. I see Arizona going to Trump by a likely margin, and the reason for that is Warren has called for the abolishment of ICE, and I think that would be something that would really hurt Warren. I think Trump would use that to rally the moderate Republicans in Arizona to support him. And again, Arizona went to Clinton by 15% in the primary, so turnout amongst the predominantly moderate Democrats would be lower there. So that would also play in Trump's favour, and Trump would only need to increase his margin by about 1.5% in Arizona compared to 2016 to reach 5%. So I think that's well within his reach, especially with a progressive candidate. In Iowa, I think the margin would actually be very similar to what it was in 2016. So Iowa I'll put in the likely Democratic column, and I don't think Trump will quite crack 10%. Even though he got very close in 2016, so Iowa would remain in the likely column. The state was almost split 50-50 in the primary between Clinton and Sanders, so there won't really be that much in terms of vote shifting there. I think Trump will hold on to his base in Iowa, and any changes in the Democratic vote will just be cancelled out. So I could be wrong on this. Iowa could go safe, but as of now, I'm going to put it in the likely column, but only just. I think 9% is would be fair to say for Iowa. Let's see. In the state of Nevada, I think Nevada would lean, I think, for Warren. Would it be lean or not? I think no. I'll put it in the tilt column. I think I'll put Nevada in the tilt column for Elizabeth Warren. And the reason for that is Nevada was close in 2016, Clinton only edged it out by 2.5%. And it did go to her in the primary by 5%, but at the same time the polls showed Trump winning there. So it's kind of I'm very conflicted on how to categorize Nevada. I think I'll narrowly give it to Warren for now, because of Democrats won it in 2016, they won it in 2018. Dean Heller lost the I think it was Dean Heller lost the Senate race there, so it's kind of trending Democratic. So I will put it in the Democratic column for now. And of course, Nebraska's 2nd district. I think it would lean for Trump. And the reason for that is progressives did well in these Midwestern states. However, I don't think that Warren will be able to excite the base enough to overcome the predominantly Republican voters in the state of Nebraska, even in the second district. So this is how I think the final electoral map would look. Trump would win re-election with 319 electoral college votes, and Warren would come out as a loser with 219 electoral college votes. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon, and I'll see you in the next video.